are not born as a leader. You're chosen to be made one by God. Be excellent. Be simple. Be authentic. Be a leader. You must choose your life journey. Experience a God who's for you. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you joined us today to our Leadership Lifter. And that's what this is all about, lifting our leadership, helping you to go to a new level, go where you've never gone before. And we're just so glad you could join us today. I know you're going to enjoy the program because today our guest is going to make a big difference in all of our life. We're so excited. So let me welcome Jody Mayberry. Jody, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Pastor Blunt. What an honor to be here. If St. Louis feels like home to me.
Yeah, you're from Peoria, right?
From Peoria. So I've spent a lot of time here. Grew up a St. Louis Blues fan, so I came to a lot of games.
Are you a Cardinals fan?
I grew up a White Sox fan. So
We'll forgive you, Jody.
Okay.
Oh, bless your heart. So, Jody, tell everybody like who you are and what you do before we really get into the meat of everything.
Well, I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, down the road here, and went to Illinois State University. And when I graduated, I thought, well, I'm going to work the rest of my life, so I want to see what's out there first. And I took 3 months and just traveled the West and fell in love with everything out there and said, oh my goodness, Peoria is a great place to be from, but I've got to come back out West. So I packed everything I owned into my 1991 Dodge Spirit and drove to Washington State and thought, I'll be here for a year and then I'll go on to the next place. But I met a girl. Girls have a way of changing your plans. So I married her. We've been there ever since. So I became a financial analyst at a commercial bank, which is exactly what I went to school for.
Okay.
But after a few years, I thought this just isn't me, and I became a park ranger. Wow. Did that for 8 years, and it was wonderful. So I tell people I'm former park ranger who became the happiest podcaster on earth because now that's what I do. I host a lot of podcasts, and the one that is just a real treat is Creating Disney Magic with Lee Cockerell, which is a tie-in to the happiest podcaster on earth.
Yeah, that's kind of how we met, was through that.
Yeah.
Because I think you helped our team here go through the time management program.
That's right.
Other programs that Lee has. How did you and Lee meet?
Well, I have no connection to Disney. At least I didn't before meeting Lee Cockerell. I had my first podcast is called The Park Leader Show. I started that in 2014.
Is that still going?
Still going, all these years later. It is for park rangers and park professionals. I wanted to talk to somebody about what parks could learn from Disney, but I had no Disney connection. I found the book Creating Magic on Amazon, reached out to the author, who was Lee Cockerell. He ran Disney World for a decade. I thought, well, there's no way the executive vice president of Walt Disney World is going to come on this little show for park rangers. What I didn't know is his sister-in-law had been a park ranger for 30 years.
Wow.
So he said, well, of course I'll come on. I love park rangers. We did one episode where we talked about his book, Creating Magic. He came back. We talked about his book, Customer Rules. It went so well. The audience loved him. Wow. I liked him. He was so good at it. And I said, Lee, have you ever thought about having your own podcast? And he said, no, I'm retired. I want to feel retired. I'm sure it'd be fun, but it sounds like work. And I saw the opportunity and I said, Lee, what if you just show up and I do all the work? 2 weeks later, he called back, said, I've been thinking about that. We should do it. And now, all these years later, we launched Creating Disney Magic in 2014. Now we do live events and we do courses and books and all sorts of things. So it really blossomed.
You know, Jody, I heard you say about the offer. Share with our audience about making an offer like you did to Lee. Remember, that's such a great concept.
Yeah, that's right. If anyone asks me, how did things work out for you or how did you become successful? I usually say it's because I ask more and I offer more.
I love that.
And when you do it, you can't be afraid to do either one. But when you make an offer, like I did with Lee, it has to be specific.
Wow.
It wasn't, Mr. Cockerell, if I can ever help you out, please let me know.
Yeah.
Because that's work for him to figure out, well, what can this guy do for me? But a very specific offer, You just show up, I'll do all the work, we'll put out a podcast. That's easy for someone to say yes to.
Wow. I love that. So again, that was what? Ask big,
Ask more and offer more.
ask more and offer more. I love that. And then I heard you say, I was listening to your podcast, one of your podcasts, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I heard you say, don't ever say no for somebody else. What does that mean?
Lee Cockerell is a great example. I hinted at it when I said, this guy ran Walt Disney World for a decade, executive vice president. He's not going to come on a little show for park rangers. I could have easily said no for Lee. I could have said, no, Lee's not going to come on this show.
Yeah.
But why not give Lee the chance to say no for himself?
I love that.
Which I did. And you know what? He said yes.
I love that.
So it worked out.
So what do you tell people who are watching that maybe they've been told no? What would you tell them?
All right, here's what you need to know about no is it's often a no right then. It's not a no forever.
I love that.
It's this situation doesn't work out, or perhaps you didn't offer in the right way.
Wow.
So try again another time. Maybe the situation is better. Maybe your offer is better. Maybe you'll get a yes next time.
I love that. I love that.
Are you looking for some interactive activities and special events that will help build your leadership and mentoring skills? Or maybe you're just looking for a place where you can network and promote your business. I encourage you, join us at our Marketplace Ministry events. You can visit our website for our upcoming dates and speakers.
So working with Lee, he's been here before for our Marketplace Ministry. And so working with him, what's some of the major things you've learned from him? I know there's a whole bunch, but what would be some major things that you've learned from him?
Well, I think the one I'm going to tell you might not be what you would expect,
Okay.
because here's someone who was an executive at Marriott, an executive at Disney, wrote the book that's still used to guide Disney today. Incredible experience. So I could tell you a lot of business things I've learned from him. Surprisingly, though, the biggest lesson I've learned from him is about time.
Wow.
It really has impacted my life in ways I wouldn't expect, to spend so much time. I don't think Lee would mind me saying his age, because he tells people Lee's 79 and he's looking back on life and thinking how fast it really moves, and that you don't. And so to talk to him and get perspective on what time really is,
Wow.
and to understand it's part of this may sound grim. It's not on your side and it's out to get you. Both of those are true, but you also can use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
If you're deliberate about it, if you say yes to the things that matter, if you understand what matters so you can devote time to it, that has had the biggest impact on my life. It's made sure I spend time in the places that matter, and I'm not chasing the wrong things, and I'm not saying yes to things that aren't contributing to what matters most to me. And that, yes, I could talk for a long time about what I've learned business-wise, but the concept of understanding time will forever be the biggest lesson I've learned from Lee.
You know, for our viewers, Jody, if they want to take that course, you did it for us, you provided it for our team. What do they do? Where do they go to find that course on time management that he has?
Well, one place to go is cockerellacademy.com.
Okay.
That's where all of our courses are found. And there's courses on leadership management, customer service. There's time management magic. There's morning magic planning. There's better decisions. All of those three kind of fit together. But if you want to do an individual course for your team, like Pastor Blunt did with his team, then just reach out. On Cockerell Academy, there's a way to reach out to us and say, I'm really interested in the time management magic course because I heard you talk about Lee's concept of time, and we'll get you set up that way.
Cool. That's cool. Thank you. You know, Jody, let's go back to when you were a park ranger. And what's some of the parks that you worked in?
I was a Washington State Park Ranger. So I spent 4 years at Riverside State Park, which is almost in Idaho. And then 4 years at Fort Flagler State Park, which is almost as far north and west as you can get and still be in the country.
Okay.
It's way out there in Washington State.
Wow.
Both beautiful in their own ways, completely different though.
Wow. Powerful concept. Where I'm going with this is I heard you on one of your podcasts talk about,
what makes parks different? They all have trees. Do you remember this? You were saying they all have trees. They all have a lot of the same things, but what sets them apart, the parks? And I thought that concept, seriously, I'm going to apply that in what we do here, the concept that you shared there.
Wonderful.
Service.
That's right.
Staff, right? Experience.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate on that? Because that was so powerful.
Keep growing your skills with Pastor David Blunt's weekly Leadership Lifter. On our website, you will find more uplifting teachings, book recommendations, and other lecture materials that will bring fulfillment to your life. Also, on the website, you can purchase Pastor Blunt's books, as well as his upcoming release, God is For You.
Yeah, so what it is, every park is relatively the same. The view might change, but they all have trees, they all have trails. So what makes you come back to this park over that park, or this park instead of going to the mall or to the movies? And it is service. It's the way we treat people.
Wow.
It's staff, because the park ranger with the hat on is as iconic as Mickey Mouse. To some people, it's that big of a deal. But that's not quite enough. You can't just have a ranger in a hat and not have the right staff on the team. And the third is the stories that you create. So that's the experience. I say there's always two types of stories. And one is learned stories, one is earned stories. Parks are really good on the learned stories. That's where you come to the park, and it might be natural history. It could be a park that preserves human history of some sort. But these are the stories that a park ranger will tell you, or you hear at a campfire program, or in a brochure or a sign. Those are learned stories. And then you go home and you tell someone, you will never believe what happened at this park. Wow. The other is earned stories. Those are the experiences people have. And then they go home and tell people, guess what I did? And so that's part of what I say when it comes to a church, a business, if you can find a way to offer both of those, the stories you tell that people go home and tell other people, or the experiences you create where people come back, go home, tell people, and then they come back and hopefully bring their friends and family.
I thought that was so good. Your staff, your service, right?
Yeah.
And the experiences. That's powerful. I wrote that down. I thought that's so good.
Well,
we want to apply that. Work on the team, and work on the experience, and work on the service, serving others. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, Jody. These podcasts go so quick, as you know.
Yeah.
But I'd ask you ahead of time to maybe share with us, because you work with a lot of people. You go a lot of places. You work with a lot of organizations and podcasters, and out of everybody that in your experiences, you've been around great leaders. You've been around. We all have bad leaders. But what's some of the characteristics that makes a great leader?
I think there are probably, it begins with knowing who you are. Leaders quite often know who they are. Like, they don't make bad decisions because they understand this is who I am and I don't do that. This is who I am, and therefore this is how I will act. So knowing, I whether it's Lee Cockerell or many of the others I work with, they usually have a pretty firm grip on knowing who they are. And the other is knowing who they help. And then they not only seek that person out or those people, but then that type of person is attracted to them.
Wow.
So that goes a long way. If I was going to offer a third one, even though I know this one comes from me, the ask more, offer more, I could weave that in to say, all the people that are successful, they know how to offer to help. They know how to ask for what they want, and they're not afraid to ask.
Not afraid to ask.
That's right.
Wow.
So those are the three. Know who you are, know who you help, ask more, offer more.
That's amazing. That's marketing, and you were into marketing. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
You got to know your audience. How do you find your audience? How do you discover, for those who are watching and want to start a business or have their own business, how do you find your audience, your target audience?
Yeah, you usually find it, if you don't know where to begin, you find it through activity, through movement, through putting podcasts out there and talking, or just getting out to conferences and meeting people. Just the more that you do, the more, if you've got something to sell, try selling it here and then try selling it there. And then try with this tagline. You just get it through movement. It's really interesting how clarity in who you are, who you help, usually comes through movement, activity, and action.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Jody, we're about out of time. I can't believe it.
But by fast.
It goes by quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But so if someone wants to follow you, how do they find your podcast? How do they follow you?
Well, you can find my home on the web is jodymayberry.com. You can find out what I'm up to. You can find all the podcasts I host. Or if you just want to cut through the line and just whatever app you listen to this, wherever you listen to this podcast, you can find the Jody Mayberry Show. You can find Creating Disney Magic.
That's awesome.
And then that's a great introduction, those two shows.
That's awesome. So, and you do some coaching, don't you? Do you provide coaching and some programs and things?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So by now I've done more than 1,700 podcast episodes, hundreds of interviews.
Wow.
So I get the question a lot because people see me out in front when it comes to podcasts. And so I get questions. So I've done two things. I've created a suite of courses to help.
Oh, great.
One called Podcast Magic, about how to have a great podcast. One called Podcast Guest Magic, about how to be a great guest on a show.
Awesome, yeah.
And the third one, Interview Magic, how to do great interviews. So those are ways people can learn more from me without me being directly involved. And then if you want more direct help, go to jodymayberry.com and just let me know.
Thank you, Jody, for being with us today so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
It's been an honor to be here.
And thank you, everyone, for watching today. We hope we've had a value. We hope we've helped you today. If we have, would you push like and share and tell someone about their program? Until next time, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you soon.